for us to maintain close communication with Mauritania. By doing so, we can better understand and address the needs and expectations of not only Mauritania, but also AU member countries. This will enable us to develop tailored policies and cooperation strategies that are specific to each country's unique context. So in summary, enhancing our relationship with Mauritania, particularly in its role as AU chair, can open new avenues for different and more effective collaboration across the African continent.
Right, and of course those are the broader hopes being shared by all participants to this first Korea-Africa summit being held here in South Korea, of course. We are bringing you live coverage of these scenes at the entrance of the summit venue. 48 African delegations out of the 55 member states of the African Union are taking part in the inaugural multilateral meeting. 25 of the 48 participating nations are being represented by their heads of state. And President Yoon Suk-yeol has spoken on the sidelines of the multilateral meeting with his counterparts from the 25 states. He has started speaking with them, that is, and on Monday alone, he spoke with the leaders of 10 of those countries. Cooperation on the economic front, cooperation on infrastructure development, and cooperation on creating a better digital environment were also on the agenda of those bilateral talks. This particular live coverage has been taking place for over an hour now. And that being said, then, Professor Kim, perhaps for those of us joining right now, you could tell us a bit again about the significance of this inaugural meeting between South Korea and its African counterparts. That is taking place given President Yoon Suk-yeol's proposal back in November 2022, when he suggested raising the ministerial level talks to summit level talks, of course. So what do you believe is the importance of this summit level interaction?
The 2024 Korea-Africa Summit that is currently taking place is in Korea for the first time ever, presents a significant moment in acknowledging Africa's strategic importance on the world stage. Major powers like the US and Western allies, usually the European countries, deepen their involvement in Africa. And also there is a noticeable increase in engagement from non-Western countries like China, Russia, Turkey, and Arab Emirates. So this summit not only highlights South Korea's dedication to strengthening diplomatic and economic bonds with African nations, but also positions Korea as a prominent player in the competitive landscape of global influence across Africa. So by hosting this summit, Korea aims to utilize its technological expertise and development know-how to establish impactful partnership that can contribute to Africa's sustainable development and bolster its geopolitical relevance.
Right, and adding on to what Professor Kim has just said, speaking about the potential of Africa, I'll take a moment now to share information given by the government here earlier on. Africa itself is a continent of the future, the government says, with 60% of its population under the age of 25. And given the inauguration of the African Continental Free Trade Area in the year 2019, Africa is rapidly evolving into a vast single market with a population of 1.4 billion and a GDP of $3.4 trillion US. Meanwhile, South Korea, for its part, shares some history, painful history as it is, as mentioned by President Kim earlier on, a dark history of colonization as well as that of the Korean War. To ensure that it reached unprecedented economic growth as we speak, which is often referred to as the miracle on the Han River, Korea has also transitioned from being a beneficiary of international aid to becoming a donor country, which is why it is seeking to contribute to the well-being of the international community and to becoming a global pivotal state under the Yoon Suk-yeol administration. The future that Korea and Africa seek to shape together is in line with Korea's quest of becoming a global pivotal state and contributing to global freedom, peace and prosperity, as well as the AU's Agenda 2063 as shared by Stephen here in the studio for sustainable development and integration of the African continent as a whole. Stephen, I believe we talked about this earlier on, the start of this live coverage, but there are many who talk about the timing of this particular inaugural meeting. Some say it should have taken place earlier, others claim it's better late than never. What do you think?
Yeah, I think Korea should feel privileged and honored to hosting this head of state level summit, because a country inviting many head of states from the continents, right? So we should be proud of this. But when we compare our neighbor country like Japan and China, since they already started this kind of Africa Cooperation Initiative. For Japan, back from the 1993, called Tokyo International Conference on Africa Development, TCAD. And for China, Forum on China-Africa Cooperation, FOCAD, in 2000. So when we compare to Japan and China, we can say we are relatively late. But also there's a saying that the best time to start is now. So I don't think we are too late, especially when I closely working and communicate together with many African residents in Korea. They have a special expectation, or they consider Korea somehow different with other countries. As just Sunny mentioned, Korea became a very unique first country who were the developing country before become a developed country. And many African countries wonder what is the secret of the success and know-how. But we should be very humble and not arrogant, because back in 30, 40 years ago, and now the global environment is quite different. So instead of just try to giving something by what we know or learn, but really hands in hands working together with Africa, understanding, have a deep sympathy with the common historical background and context which shared Korea and African nations are together. And if we're working together, I really believe that Korea and African nations can be a real good partner in the future, who can really become a leader and pivotal state for the global society. So in that means we are not that late. This time is the earliest moment. So more important thing is from now, how we are going to do. So that's why the follow-up, monitoring, the action plan is much more important, not just declaration of the just few days summit. Really tailored follow-up with each country will make another different future between Korea and African countries.
Right, of course, because actions speak louder than words. So you need to take a proactive approach to the discussions that take place today at the Korea-Africa Summit. Last week, Stephen, I had the pleasure of speaking with members of an online platform called African Voices in Korea.
Sure.
They share information about life in Korea among the African community here in the country. That being said, Stephen, what do you suppose perhaps are some of the challenges that our African residents face here in South Korea, that as well as efforts to perhaps better address these challenges? What do you propose?
So true, but in fact, the population itself is quite small. Only about 20,000 African residents living in Korea, approximately up and down. But the most population among that 20,000, almost 1 of 4 of the population has the visa with the difficulties, like refugee status or some difficult situation. Although they are super talented and studying very well, after their graduation, having this job opportunity is quite limited, and sometimes during their application process, they receive some kind of unseen discrimination or unfair treatments. So that, but still, we have room to improve. So that I think working together with the communities, embassies, and throughout these summits and civil society, promoting awareness, and then we can hosting more African students to Korea, and they will expand their opportunity and experience in Korea. Then I think that environment will change it slightly, step by step. So we need more time, but there's some difficulties. Yeah.
Right. And Professor Kim, this is something we talked about earlier on as well, but generally speaking, what are the gains for South Korea with regard to ties with Africa, and what also does Africa look to gain from stronger ties with South Korea, do you think?
First of all, what we can gain from Africa, the summit actually provides substantial opportunity for cordial relationship with African countries, especially because these days there is a recent shift in global supply chains and the emergence of value alliances and protectionist measures. So as a nation heavily reliant on external resources, Korea encountered obstacles in securing essential minerals crucial for its renewable energy sector, electric vehicles, energy transition, and carbon neutrality objectives. So, but Africa, having abundant reserves of these critical minerals, can offer Korea a strategic opportunity to stabilize its supply chains. Not only the mineral supplies, but the summit also serves as a platform to deepen our engagement with Africa's 1.4 billion population, which means we can tackle interconnected issues